I was gone for one night. Just one night. One phone call, one favor, one decision made out of loyalty. And by the next morning, my marriage was over. The man I trusted like a brother slept under my roof, ate in my house, used my key, and before sunrise, he was in my bed with my wife. When I walked into that bedroom, I didn't just lose my temper, I lost something worse: mercy. And what I did after that? Let's just say, she never forgot it. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how one ordinary night turned into the kind of betrayal that destroys a man from the inside out. My name is Ethan Carter. I was 38 years old, living in Columbus, Ohio, and from the outside, my life looked solid. I owned a small logistics company, nothing glamorous, but it paid well. I had a house in a quiet neighborhood, a stable marriage, a routine life, the kind of life most people would call successful. And my wife, Melissa, she had been with me for over a decade. We had history, real history, struggles, milestones, late-night talks, arguments, reconciliations, all of it. I thought that kind of history meant something. Then there was my neighbor, Ryan Mitchell. Ryan wasn't just some guy who lived next door. He was my friend. The kind of friend who comes over to help fix a broken fence. The kind of friend who brings over a six-pack on game night. The kind of friend you trust with your house key. That was my first mistake. Not giving him the key, believing he deserved it. Because the truth is, some betrayals don't begin in the bedroom. They begin the moment you mistake access for loyalty. That week, I had to leave town for work. A client in Cleveland had a shipping issue that threatened a major contract, and I had to handle it personally. So late that afternoon, I packed a bag, kissed Melissa goodbye, and hit the road. Nothing felt strange. Nothing looked suspicious. No coldness, no unusual tension, no obvious warning signs. If there were cracks in my marriage, I didn't see them. That night, around 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. It was Ryan. I almost ignored it. But I answered, and that one decision changed everything. "Ethan," he said, sounding stressed, "man, I'm sorry to call so late. My power's out. Whole place is freezing. Utility company says they can't get here until morning. Can I crash at your house tonight? Just the couch." That should have been a simple yes. And it was. Because at that moment, I trusted him completely. I said, "Yeah, of course. Melissa's home. I'll text her and let her know." And he said, "Thanks, man. I owe you one." Those words stayed with me later. I owe you one. Because he did. He owed me more than he could ever repay. I texted Melissa right away. "Ryan's power is out. He's gonna sleep on the couch tonight. Let him in." She answered, almost instantly. "Of course. No problem. Drive safe. Love you, love you." 2 words. 2 perfect little words. And they were already rotten. I barely slept that night. Not because I was suspicious. Not because I sensed betrayal. Nothing dramatic like that. I was just stressed from work and eager to get home. By sunrise, I was already driving back. Coffee in the cup holder. Mind half on contracts, half on getting home to my own bed. When I pulled into the driveway the next morning, everything looked normal. Too normal. Ryan's truck was still next door. His porch was quiet. My house looked still. Peaceful, ordinary. But when I stepped inside, something felt wrong. Not obvious, not loud, just wrong. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't calm you. The kind that warns you. Then I saw Ryan's boots by the front door, not tossed near the couch. Not positioned like a guest staying in the living room. Just there. As if he'd moved through the house like he belonged in it. I looked at the couch. The blanket was folded, untouched, perfectly neat. And in that moment, something cold moved through my chest. I called out, "Melissa?" No answer. Then Ryan? Nothing. And then I heard it. A soft sound upstairs, a creak, a shift, the sound of movement coming from my bedroom. Lowly. My bedroom. Every step up those stairs felt unreal, like my body already knew the truth before my mind was ready to accept it. When I reached the top, the bedroom door was slightly open, just enough. I pushed it, and there they were. My wife, my friend, in my bed. For a second, nobody moved. It was like time itself refused to continue. Melissa grabbed the sheet and pulled it to her chest. Her face lost all color. Ryan sat up like a man caught in a nightmare of his own making. Melissa was the first one to speak. Ethan, then Ryan. Bro, listen. And I said just one word. Don't. I didn't yell. I didn't lunge at him. I didn't throw punches. I didn't smash anything. And honestly, that scared them more. Because rage is temporary. But cold silence? Cold silence means something inside you just died. Melissa started crying instantly. Not soft crying, not ashamed crying, panicked crying. She said, "It's not what you think." And I laughed. Actually laughed. Because there are lies. And then there is that lie. The most insulting lie in the human language. Ryan got out of bed, reaching for his jeans, and said, "Ethan, man, I swear this just..." I cut him off. This just happened? Neither of them answered. Because we all knew the truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't one bad decision. This was a pattern. A secret. A hidden life they had built behind my back. Then I saw something that made it even worse. Ryan was wearing my shirt, a shirt Melissa had bought for me. Not one like mine. Mine. That was the exact moment my marriage stopped being a marriage and became a crime scene. Now most people think the worst part of betrayal is catching them in the act. It's not. The worst part comes after, when your brain starts replaying every memory and turning trust into evidence. And what I discovered later? It made that bedroom scene look almost merciful. I walked out of the room, walked downstairs, picked up my duffel bag, and left my own house. Melissa called me 16 times. Ryan called 7. Then came the texts. "Please come back, it was a mistake. Please let me explain, you don't understand. Please answer." I read every single one. And with each message, I became calmer. Not better. Not healed. Just colder. Because betrayal does something strange to the mind. At first it feels like fire. Then it becomes calculation. You stop feeling. You start adding. The late replies. The smiles that didn't reach the eyes. The moments they went silent when you entered a room. The extra time on the phone. The unexplained distance. The fake affection. The little lies that only make sense after the big one is exposed. By noon that same day, I was in a lawyer's office. Her name was Danielle Brooks. Sharp. Calm. Efficient. She listened to everything without interrupting. Then she asked me a simple question. Do you want to react emotionally or strategically? That question changed everything. Because in that moment, I realized something. If I lost control, they would call me unstable. If I got violent, they would become victims. If I screamed loud enough, the truth would get buried under drama. So I chose something else. Strategy. And strategy is a much crueler form of revenge. I checked into a hotel and started digging. Not guessing. Not assuming. Digging. Melissa had forgotten that one of our old tablets was still synced to our shared cloud, and what I found there destroyed any illusion that this had been one mistake. It was an affair. A full affair. Months long. Carefully hidden. Repeated. Planned. There were messages, photos, deleted threads backed up by accident, flirtation, complaints about me, jokes about me, even plans for when they could meet again. And then I found the message that changed everything. Ryan had texted her. He trusts me so much it almost makes me feel bad. Almost. Almost. That one word told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't conflicted. He wasn't ashamed. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed the access. He enjoyed the lie. He enjoyed humiliating me without my knowledge. And Melissa? She wasn't innocent either. She wrote things like, "I feel more alive with you than I have in years." And, "Ethan is a good provider, but he doesn't really see me anymore." That sentence made my hands shake. Not because it was true, but because it was convenient. That's what people do when they cheat. They rewrite the faithful person into the villain, so they can live with themselves. And that's when I stopped asking why they did it, because the why didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what I was going to do next. Danielle helped me move quickly. I documented everything, separated my finances legally, protected my business, prepared the divorce paperwork, sent every screenshot and record to my attorney. But legal action wasn't the only part of the plan. Because Melissa and Ryan didn't just betray me privately, they built their affair around secrecy, image, and arrogance. So I decided to remove the secrecy. Ryan had been dating a woman named Lauren for almost a year. She had no idea he'd been sleeping with a married woman next door. So I sent her the truth. No angry rant, no threats, no insults, just evidence, dates, messages, screenshots, and one sentence: "You deserve the truth the same way I did." She replied with 4 words: "Thank you, I'm done." I later heard she dumped his things on the front lawn in black trash bags. Good. But that wasn't the part that stayed with Melissa. No, Melissa's real punishment came later. Because humiliation hurts most, when it reaches the people whose opinions you worship. And Melissa worshipped appearances. She cared about social standing, about looking polished, graceful, admired, like the kind of woman who would never do something ugly. So when she begged me to attend one last family dinner at her parents' house, I said yes. And she thought that meant hope. She had no idea. It meant judgment. Saturday night. Her parents' house. A polished dining room. Coffee after dinner. Forced smiles. Tension hiding under silverware and small talk. Her father Richard sat at the head of the table. Her mother, Janice, beside him. Her younger sister, Brianna, and Brianna's husband, Kyle, across from us. Melissa was dressed perfectly. Hair done. Makeup soft. Voice delicate. She thought this dinner was going to help her rebuild the image she'd shattered. I let her think that. Dinner ended. Coffee was poured. Then, Richard looked at us and said, "So, are you two going to tell us what's been going on?" Melissa turned toward me, expecting me to soften the truth. I didn't. I said, calmly, "Yes, I think they should know." Then I looked at her parents and said, 10 days ago, I came home from a work trip and found Melissa in bed with Ryan. The room went dead still. No one moved. No one breathed. Janice froze with her cup halfway to her mouth. Brianna blinked like she was trying to process another language. Kyle stared at the table, and Richard's face hardened inch by inch. Melissa turned pale. Ethan. But I kept going. Not suspected. Not rumored. Not misunderstood. I found them. In our bedroom. In my bed, after I allowed him to stay in my house because he claimed his power was out. Then, I took out the folder. Printed screenshots. Messages. Proof. I placed it on the table between us. No theatrics. No shouting. Just facts. Richard opened it first, and I watched a father discover who his daughter really was. Melissa stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "This is disgusting," she snapped. "You had no right." I looked at her and said, "No right? You brought another man into my home, into my bed, and you think privacy is the issue?" Then Richard looked up from the papers and asked her the question that ended everything. "Is it true?" Melissa tried to speak. Couldn't. Tried again. Then finally whispered, yes. Her mother started crying. Her sister looked away. And her father didn't yell, he just stepped back from her, like he no longer recognized the woman he raised. That hurt her more than any scream ever could. Then I slid the divorce papers across the table. I'm filing, I said. The house is being sold. My attorney already has everything. If this becomes a fight, every detail goes into public record. Melissa stared at me like she was looking at a man she had never met, and in a way, she was. Because the version of me that loved her blindly, that man was already gone. Then I gave her the page that would stay with her forever. One printed message, the one Ryan had sent, the one she had laughed at. He trusts me so much it almost makes me feel bad. Almost. I placed it in front of her and tapped it once. This, I said, is why I will never forgive you. Not because you cheated. Because you mocked my trust while you were doing it. And that was it. That was the moment she broke. Not dramatically. Not performatively. Completely. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing into her hands, finally forced to see herself without excuses. Then Richard looked at her and said the words I know still echo in her head. You didn't just betray your husband. You embarrassed your name. And I stood up, buttoned my coat, and walked out. No shouting, no threats, no last look back. Just silence, the kind of silence that follows a public execution of a lie. Now if you think that was the end, it wasn't. Because exposure is only the first consequence. The real punishment came after, when both of them had to live in the world they created. By Monday, Ryan's life had started collapsing too. Lauren left him. The neighborhood found out why. Friends stopped inviting him around, and the version of himself he used to hide behind, that image was gone. At one point he texted me, "You didn't have to destroy everything." Destroy everything? That's the kind of sentence only a selfish man could write. I didn't destroy his life. I revealed it. There's a difference. Melissa moved out into a short-term rental. Her social media went dark. Some of her friends disappeared. The charity groups she cared about so much quietly distanced themselves. Even her own mother sent me a handwritten note saying, "I am ashamed of what she did to you. You did not deserve that." And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Not because I was happy. I wasn't. Not because I had won. There are no winners in betrayal. I felt peace because the truth was no longer trapped inside me. It was out. And once the truth is out, the lying stops controlling the story. The divorce took a few months. No children. Clear evidence. Clean paperwork. Near the end, Melissa asked one final question. We were sitting in Danielle's office, signing documents, when she looked at me with red eyes and said, "If there's even a piece of you that remembers what we had." I stopped her. "What I remember," I said, "is that I came home early because I missed my wife." She started crying before I finished. "And I found a stranger wearing her skin." That was the last private conversation we ever had. And honestly, it was the only ending we had left. People hear a story like this and expect revenge to look violent, explosive, messy. They expect screaming, broken glass, fists, police lights. But real revenge? Real revenge is cleaner than that. It's protecting yourself while they expect you to self-destruct. It's telling the truth while they beg for secrecy. It's walking away with dignity while they drown in the consequences of their own choices. I lost my marriage in one morning, but I found something in the ashes that I didn't know I still had. Self-respect. Clarity. The ability to look betrayal in the face and not become it. A year later, I sold the house. bought a smaller place, started over. Quietly, carefully, honestly. And the last thing I heard about Melissa, she still talks about that dinner. Still can't sit through family gatherings without remembering the night the lie collapsed in front of everyone. Good. Because some memories deserve to stay, especially the ones you created with your own hands. So if you've ever been betrayed, if someone smiled in your face while tearing your life apart behind your back, hear this. You do not need to destroy yourself to make them feel what they've done. Sometimes the most unforgettable revenge is truth. Calm truth. Public truth. Final truth. I let him into my house for one night. He took my trust. She took my loyalty. And they both lost far more than they stole. Because in the end, I didn't ruin them with rage. I ruined their illusion by refusing to lie for them. And that is what she will remember for the rest of her life. If this story hit harder than you expected, then you already know. Betrayal doesn't always begin with hate. Sometimes it begins with trust.